Okay, well, we're going to continue on with today's programming here. I'm very pleased to introduce Afri here, who is the head of protocol engineering with ChainSafe, and he's going to be speaking to us about our new favorite testnet.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm not only head of protocol at ChainSafe, but I also do testnets on the side, and I want to give a presentation today about a new and upcoming testnet that might catch your attention. What is a testnet? So the non-technical explanation is if you have a lot of ease and you want to test out a new smart contract, you don't send all your ease to it and just YOLO, you don't want to see what's happening, but you test it, you set a small amount, see if it works before you go in with a full thing. So in software engineering, you do the same thing. If you build software, you don't want to test it in production, right? You want to test it before. In blockchain systems, Ethereum, we are talking about massive peer-to-peer networks, and in network engineering we need to also test networks, right? That's what a testnet is. And today I'm talking about a very specific kind of testnets, which are the public testnets or stable testnets that are used by a lot of different users to test different use cases. Who are these users? The users couldn't be more different in what they require from a testnet, what they do on a testnet, and what they want to achieve. There are the protocol engineers that build the lowest layer, the actual testnet itself, or the actual execution layer, the actual consensus layer in the case of Ethereum. There are huge service providers. There's a huge amount of contract and application developers that build on top of this entire stack, and obviously there are all the people engaging in consensus. In case of Ethereum, it's the stakers or staking pools. And last but not least, the users actually engaging with all these different layers of the testnet. So what are the Ethereum testnets? You've probably known them for a long time. There's Girly, a proof-of-stake testnet. There's Seola, a proof-of-authority testnet, and you might not have heard about Holešky yet, but I get into this a bit later. It's also a proof-of-stake testnet. But what's the difference, and why is there a difference? Proof-of-stake obviously is like mainnet, so most of you probably stake ETH on mainnet, but if you do so, you might, unless you use a pool where you really trust it, you might want to test your setup before doing that. And you can only do this if we actually have a testnet as also like mainnet, so supporting the full-blown proof-of-stake. And this is valuable for mainly two groups of users. First of all, for protocol engineers that want to make sure that their algorithm, their beacon chain, the consensus layer is actually working. And also, obviously, for everyone who wants to stake ETH. On the other hand, proof of authority has been very valuable in the past to provide testnets with a certain stability guarantee. So if you want to build applications on a testnet, you don't necessarily care about if it's proof of stake, proof of authority, proof of work, or whatever, or even mocked consensus. You don't care. You just want to make sure that the application you test, and eventually if you have a larger stack, you provide it to your users that want to test it. So you want to make sure it's also available and stable throughout a long period of time. So this is mainly valuable for application engineers. So when we just launched the Holešky testnet, the question was raised, why do we need a new testnet? We already have two or even more. So let me just take a look at the motivation here. So the Girly testnet, which is our current proof of stake testnet, it has been deprecated earlier this year. It might reach end of life. It's not really officially announced, but we are very close to end of life. And the main reason is that we are out of testnet Ether. It's simple as that. You know, if you don't have Ether to test, you cannot run an application on it, right? You cannot interact with smart contracts, but most importantly, you can also not test staking, right? The entire operations of staking, you know, each staker needs 32 ETH, and if you have a pool or a larger stack of, you want to test a fleet of stakers, you easily need 10,000 of testnet Ether to test your setup. And since the Girly testnet Ether distribution is basically depleted, this created a very horrible situation of speculation. So people that didn't get testnet Ether started to try to buy it on shady channels. So there was a speculation around this asset which should be free for everyone to use. So there was a decision made, we need to like really purge this and just replace it. On top of that, we also need a better testnet because Girly was always lagging behind a bit. So protocol engineers ideated what is actually the requirement for a new testnet and what can we do? Can we use this chance if we launch a new testnet to get ahead of mainnet? Oh, and last but not least, this would be the first testnet we launch after the merge last year. So we can actually bake in the merge to proof of stake into Genesis. So we have a proof of stake chain right from Genesis, which is, I believe, really exciting. This is EF DevOps team and myself at Protocol Berg in Berlin trying to launch it. We didn't manage to, but we relaunch it later. Yeah, so why is this important, what I just said? So for protocol engineers, the idea to have, especially for the consensus layer engineers, to have the idea to be ahead of mainnet, this basically means to have more validators on a testnet than we actually have on mainnet. So you can see on Girly we have currently 600,000 validators. On mainnet we have around 1 million, whereas we launched Holešky with 1.5 million. And this serves like a canary. You know, if something goes wrong, we want to see it on a testnet first and not on mainnet. And if mainnet is ahead of a testnet, there is actually the possibility that we would spot bugs on mainnet first, which is not desired. So we decided to use this opportunity to go ahead of mainnet. Also, in addition to that, we drastically increased the total circulating supply. The circulating supply for the testnet, we baked in almost 3 billion Holešky Ether into the Genesis as compared to the laughable 100 million we launched Girly with. Also, we came up with some strategies of distributing the Ether to users of the testnet. So we pre-funded 500,000 wallets with 1,000 testnet Ether on Holešky. So if before you complain on social media about getting testnet Ether, check your wallet first. Shout out to Philip, who did the heavy lifting there. And also we distributed a lot of testnet Ether to important stakeholders in the ecosystem, like ETHStaker, that run their own services to distribute testnet Ether and ETH staking or testing. Yeah, so I think, we just told everyone last year to migrate to Girly, which was either a miscommunication or a lack of communication. I think we were not entirely sure what a strategy for testnets would be, and as I said, there are so many different stakeholders in the ecosystem, and many people have different ideas about testnets or about stability guarantees. And when we told people last year to migrate to Girly, we didn't really think this through. We have to admit this, and that's the moment where we started, too late admittedly, but we started to talk about strategies out of this mess. So a lot of large, so if you have a large application stack, like, I don't know, you run a huge system of contracts that depend on each other, you need a network effect of integrating with other applications on testnet, or even run a layer 2, it's a huge stack you deploy on a testnet, and then someone tells you now deploy it on another testnet. So a lot of projects were not happy about this. So we thought, how can we manage expectations for testnet, and came up with a predictable testnet lifecycle that has clear timelines and predictable end of life expectations, so that migration paths can be planned long ahead of deprecation, so that projects are kind of aware that a certain testnet comes with a certain uptime guarantee. And the idea here is to have a guaranteed testnet lifetime of 4 years, and allowing on top of that maybe long-term support, or if a testnet does well, we don't necessarily need to deprecate it after 4 years, but we don't really want to commit to more than 4 years here. And since we have both a proof of stake and a proof of authority testnet, we will launch a new testnet every other year if we commit to this plan. The actual proposal we wrote is on Ethereum Magicians. You can look it up, and this timeline just visualizes where we are right now. You can see 2023, Girly is at its end of life. Sepolia is in the middle now. Most of the applications are migrating to Sepolia currently. If you did not migrate yet, you might even consider another option now. So, yeah. We also shut down Ringby earlier this year, so it's a lot of movement in the testnet landscape. Girly is, I don't know what the exact date will be, but it's about to die. I think we still have to officially announce the Holešky launch. But at this point, I would say if you still run Girly or Ringby or any other testnet, it's really time to consider migrating to Sepolia or Holešky, depending on your needs. Okay, I'll finish my presentation with a handy testnet selection guide. As I said, Holešky is proof of stake, so obviously if you're a staker and annoyed about the Girly stake, just take a look at Holešky. Due to the size and expected network effects, it could be also interesting for large service providers or layer 2s, or really whoever else needs mainnet conditions on a testnet. At the time of this presentation, the expected uptime guarantees are around 4 years, with an end of life of 2028 for Holešky. Sepolia is, as I said, for whoever needs stability guarantees, mainly application developers. And currently the expected lifetime is another 2 years for this testnet. Repeating the obvious, don't use Girly. Please stop using Girly. Painful for me to say this. Girly was a really important project for us when we launched it 5 years ago. But testnets changed a lot since, also Ethereum changed a lot since, so let's officially deprecate it, stop using it. Obviously also don't use Ringby, Rubston or Cohen. And if you didn't listen to me the last 10 minutes, this is the summary. If you want to stake, use Holešky. If you want to test application stacks, use Sepolia. I have a bonus slide, since I have time. How to get testnet Ether. It's a hot topic, has always been. Obviously for Holešky, check your testnet wallet. We did this airdrop to 500,000 wallets on Holešky. So that's the first thing you should do. Obviously we have nice faucets up. My favorite is the proof of work faucet by Philip. But there are also others. if you want to validate and don't have enough Ether to test the validator setup, obviously EthStaker is doing a really good job at distributing or funding your validators directly. You can use their launchpad. ChainSafe provides a similar thing. It's called the validator faucet, so you don't need Ether, but you can still make deposits and run your own validators with their ETH. And in case you didn't know, if you have tickets on Zupass, you can also claim testnet Ether. So you can go to the Holešky faucet pk910.de and connect your Zupass account, and you will be eligible to get 500 testnet Ether. I think on every network, but yeah, you can check it out. And that's plenty if you want to test staking setups or applications, so you should be sorted up for a while. Yeah, and last but not least, if you really have a reason for a huge amount of testnet Ether, you can always talk to your local dealers, if you know any. That's my talk. Is there any question?
Oh, perfect, excellent questions. We'll get right to them.
Thanks for the talk. Yeah, just a quick question regarding how much is the fish. Maybe you talked a little bit about it in the beginning, but I missed it. Can you tell us what exactly went wrong with the first testnet launch and how it's related to the fish?
Thank you. This is my favorite question. We have been launching testnets for a while, and I personally believe it's a beautiful moment to launch a testnet because you create a Genesis block by hand, and you can like put up a lot of things that remain in the history forever. You know, it will be always in the extra data of block 0, for example. And for Holešky, we did not put any. And when I reviewed the Genesis block, I said, why not just put something in there and just put the example how much is a fish, and the person who was authoring this pull request took it literal and put in how much is the fish, which is kind of funny today. But then it was, it was funny all the way. And I didn't realize by making this suggestion that I completely broke the entire testing setup, or like the way because all these files were pre-generated. If you change something, you can no longer be sure that everything else is fine. So what happened is that we patched the genesis of the execution layer manually without updating the consensus layer configuration. So once we launched testnet at Protocol Berlin, we didn't manage, so the consensus layer just refused to talk to the execution layer because they refused the genesis. And what we had to do is basically just remove this again and launch it. So it was not a big deal, but it was kind of sad, but also now I think now we can laugh about it.
Hi, Afri. Since you mentioned the situation with Girly, with the speculation with testnet Ether, I wonder if there is any solution or any plans to avoid this same situation in Holešky.
Yeah, that's also a very good question. So there are a lot of things you can do about this. So first of all, you can increase the supply. That is the easiest thing, because if you have more, obviously that will last longer. Then also what EthStaker does, or what ChainSafe does with the validator faucets, is basically you put out the Ether for the people testing, but you basically make them to set a withdrawal address to their account. So whenever they are done testing, it basically goes back to you. So it stays in circulation, and it's not just because people lose interest or move on, they will not just, it's not getting lost, right? And there are many of these ideas. And last but not least, we have, on Holešky, we have these mechanisms, but since Seola is proof of authority, we have a way to mint new tokens through the deposit contract. So we have technically an unlimited supply there. So if there's ever a situation, I think we should be good for at least 5 years. And just looking at how long we managed to deal with Girly in the last 5 years with just 100 million total supply, I'm very confident we're set up for future here.
Yeah, I have a last question. Can you comment a little bit more on what stability guarantees does proof of authority offer?
Sorry, can you repeat this?
Yeah. You said that proof of authority offers more stability guarantees. What are they? Can you comment a little bit more?
Yeah. So in before the merge, proof of authority has basically you just have 7 validators that run the entire consensus for the chain, and if someone goes down, you basically just write one message on matrix and then ping this operator, and this person will respond within a couple of hours, and then it's fixed. So this network is not relying on a large amount of people or organizations to coordinate to run it, like we have on proof of stake, but just a couple of few. So after the merge, the Seola testnet is run by, let's say, 15 or 20 entities that coordinate in a chat channel, and it's a closed validator set, so nobody else can join this validator set. So the stability guarantee here is like on the consensus side, right? And all other stability guarantees are inherited from the mainnet. I think that's the difference.
All right. One more question in the back here. And
I'm just wondering if you can talk briefly about performance, and like one of the things that was annoying about testing validators on Girly was that you'd miss attestations sometimes, and it wasn't necessarily your fault because the whole network is just not performing as well as mainnet. Do you think that over time Holešky will start to look like that as people are done testing and they just unplug their machines and don't properly exit their validators? Is there any reason that Holešky will be any better or worse than Girly performance-wise?
Yeah, I think it's just getting worse the bigger the validator set is, but what we did is we tried to ensure that, let me say, trusted operators have a super majority in this validator set. So it's a lot of all the client teams, Ethereum Foundation, and long-term community members are running a huge chunk of these validators to just make sure we have certain finality guarantees for the testnet, but still keeping it open for everyone else who wants to join. So Girly was a bit shaky at some point, and we cannot rule out that this will not also happen on Holešky at some day, but it is the nature of proof of stake on a zero value testnet. We cannot fully mitigate this, unfortunately.
well, excellent. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. Please join me in giving our speaker a round of applause here.
Thank you.